And we want to be real clear about what problem are we solving, right? First one is, how do I keep somebody from getting onto my network? And two, am I really in control of the devices that are on my network, right? And SuperNAC really enables you to do these kind of things, answer these questions. So here are 6 features that we are rolling out under the SuperNAC feature suite that provide you that identity-based endpoint control and network control and access control. And you compile these on different ways depending on what you want in your security policy and your business policy, but they're all there to lock down your network, lock down your devices, so you know who's on your network and you know that device you're talking to is the device you think you're talking to. So let's look at some examples here. So this is the port dice feature set under SuperNAC. And this is how we protect the head-end network from unauthorized access. We created a system where the head-end server is completely blocked from any inbound tunnel requests. And an enrolled remote appliance over here actually doesn't know how to connect to the server. It has to be told out of band using some two-factor authentication techniques to actually understand where am I supposed to connect to, how am I supposed to connect to it, and it will not do that until it receives that command back from the server. So if somebody just took this device, they actually don't know where it's going to go to. The head-end server then authenticates the remote appliance and then tells that appliance how to connect to it. And once the server knows who that is and authorizes that remote appliance, it will actually create a firewall rule that will cause a pinpoint hole for that appliance's IP address only to connect in. So you know that that appliance is where it's supposed to be, and it's going to connect to here based on the parameters of where it is. This also has great denial of service protection because you don't know where it's going to be. You can port scan this all day long. You're never going to get a connection off of it. Now that the tunnel and connection is secure, let's talk about how we protect the head-end network. And we have an exclusive feature called IP share, which will block all upstream network activity until triggered by the head-end network. So here we have a list of features that IP share will do. And basically what it does is it gives you a bridged connection all the way to the IPTL appliance, which is here, and then isolates the remote network from your head-end network. So this gives you basically a tunnel net right here with a firewall, and allows you to do some interesting things. One, you can have overlapping IP addresses. You do not have to reconfigure the upstream router at all to use the tunnel. And you get direct access from the head-end network to individual devices and services that are programmed. And what's really interesting about this is that until the head-end operator actually makes a connection to a device like this IP camera, there is no traffic coming up, even if the IP camera is in the table for approved devices. So let's see how this works. We have an auditor over here, number 3. He wants to look at the video camera, number 4. And so he opens up his client or application and it goes over, and the IP share sees an incoming brand new connection and says, I want to talk to the IP camera at 4. And so he goes, oh, I see that. He's an authorized user. I'm going to open up my firewall and let the traffic go to the camera. And then I'll also simultaneously connect the camera's return traffic to that connection and allow that to traverse the firewall. So this gives you the ability to not just put a rule in that it authorizes this camera, but it actually authorizes it at the application level, triggered by the head-end user. And once the head-end user closes that session down, the firewall zips everything up and is completely isolated from the head-end network back up from the remote network. Now, one of the ways we provide conditional access control is using and verifying the cert of a local appliance. Any appliance that offers an HTTPS web server can be queried with our TrustACL cert feature. And once we get the cert, we can verify it in several ways, including a normal public key or use a loaded root cert into our device to verify it. In the example here, I've actually pulled the real cert off of a Honeywell NVR that I'm using in my demonstration. And we can use that then to trigger dynamically ACL firewall rules to permit or block traffic over the tunnel. So we can query this device, and if we get its cert back after we verify it, then we can enable traffic over the tunnel. But if we all of a sudden query this device and don't get the cert or get the wrong cert, we can actually create a block situation and an alert. This gives you the greatest granular control without an agent deployed to say, this is the device I think I'm talking to. Now, what happens if a device doesn't have an HTTPS server on it? Well, we have another method with that. We can actually fingerprint a network device, and we take several aspects of what that looks like on the wire, and every network device has its own characteristics, and we can build a model of what that device looks like. So just as I have gray hair and light skin, and I'm 5'10", we can build a model of what that device looks like, and if all of those parameters match up, then we can let them onto the tunnel. If all of a sudden that disappears or there's a swap out, then we can block it. And so this, as you can see, goes way beyond MAC address firewall rules, and really combats spoofing, because it's more than just being able to change the IP address or change the MAC address. You actually have to make it look like that device. One of the more interesting features is the TrustACL app, where we're actually only allowing certain application services to come through the tunnel. And this is really important for certain IP cameras and devices that might be polluted or have backdoors in them. We can actually block the access of that device, backdoor, or unauthorized application up the tunnel. So in this case here, you see we've got a backdoor from a bad guy going through an IP camera, but actually we're only allowing the video stream to come through the tunnel. Anything else, we're going to immediately block. And this gives you complete layer 7 control over what comes over the network. One of the most interesting features actually is this TrustACL interface. This is where we can tie a unit to a device, provide full identity and encryption services on a port-based level. So now we can even go further and say, this camera is tied to this port with these type of identity features. This NVR is connected to this port with these type of identity features, and pull all that together so that if somebody tries to swap one of these out, we get an immediate alert, and this gives you real continuous isolation and monitoring of your remote network assets. Now, we often get asked the question, what happens if somebody takes a device home, walks away with it, we lose it, and it happens? Well, it's real easy. On the server side page, you have a button called Revoke. And if you think you've lost a box or not sure where it is, you hit Revoke and it will not allow it to connect up to your network. It's that easy. And if you want to put it back into play, you can always go back to the tunnel page and reinstitute it. It's a non-destructive way to shut down, and it's meant to be temporary. Shut down a connections until you know what's happened with that device. Now, if it's truly stolen or truly lost, you can brick it, and that actually wipes out all of the memory. And if you want to use it again, you got to send it back to the factory because it's done for. So how do you deploy this? Well, there's two models, local and centralized, and actually you can combine them if you want. But really, local is more interesting because it allows you to adapt the device and appliance to the physical area that you're trying to protect. Centralized can work. You can bring all your devices in and manage them from a central location, but it gets a little bit more tricky when you're dealing with more than a few remote locations. But you can always combine them too. So you can provide local for the local assets and then centralized to manage, let's say, the appliances themselves out into the network. And here are a couple of architecture pictures of how you can actually deploy the appliances into a network. So we've got inline, where we are the access router for the whole network. You've got a stub where we're just put onto the LAN. And then, of course, the direct connect or enclave, where we can actually separate out the network assets from a local enterprise LAN. So what does this protect against? Well, if you've got an IP camera, you can actually encrypt the video streams and prevent others on the enterprise LAN from actually seeing the traffic that's going across. Now, there are NAC solutions out there today. Pick your favorite vendor. But they're all focused really on enterprise mobility management, BYOD. It's how do I manage users that are traveling between offices with their laptops and their iPhones. They really don't address the IoT or the fixed application device, right? They want you to put a client, create a special area on your phone that is just for the BYOD, and that's great, and that serves a need. But what happens if I've got a manufacturing device, a PLC, like this guy, and how do I secure that? This is actually from the Aruba forum. I was just searching on the web, and it came right up, and wow, it looked really good. So this gentleman's looking to secure his manufacturing PLC devices, and Mr. MVP over here goes, well, we generally use MAC authentication. Well, that's a MAC address that is so easily spoofed with tools off the internet. Doesn't really provide authentication. The other way to do it is put an 802.1x client on your PC, but you can't put a client on a printer or an IP camera or access control reader. And maybe it's got one built into it, and that's all good and well. But the way 802.1x works is, well, it only authenticates at the establishment of the link. So you've got a hijacking problem with that. And of course, no data is encrypted anyways. So this is just admission to the network, not really securing your data and keeping it private. So what do? Well, we secure your data in motion. That's using our TLS with the AS256. We've got the appliance and link protection. This gives you remote server appliance attribution and full NAC, as well as the network access protection with IP share and the SuperNAC feature set. How is this going to show up? Well, it's a licensed feature, and it'll show up in the top ribbon bar of a licensed appliance, and from there you'll be able to enroll devices, manage alerts, and manage all of the features I just talked about. It will be a perpetual feature license across all of IPTL's product line. You can add this to existing products. We actually license it one per appliance. So there are no per host or per device licenses. They're unlimited. So if you've got 10 sites with 50 IP cameras across those 10 sites, well, you only need 10 licenses for each of the devices. We are in customer betas now, so if you're interested in partaking, please let me know. And we're looking for full launch at the end of June. We also have a technical hands-on training session coming up. So if you're interested in that, watch out for registration. We'll be making some announcements on that. We also have some online technical training at YouTube. So just go to our YouTube channel and you can take yourself through some hands-on technical training free of charge. And we're positioned really, really well. We have a full 200-point matrix going point to point of how we stack up against the usual suspects. There's a full package there you can download of our security documents as well as our competitive feature matrix. And so we ask you to help yourself to that. And of course, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk to you about your project or how we can fit in and support your initiatives. Thank you.